This is Dr. Ed Two Rose with the Focus Life Business. Today I want to talk to you about some important information about processes. Now, I spent 37 years in Fortune 100, 10 with Unilever, and 27 as a manager and trainer with the Coca-Cola Company. So processes are very important. Now, as a consultant to companies and a trainer to companies, this is what I see lacking in most organizations and businesses. They don't have the processes in place for success. And today I want to share just a couple of processes with you that I've used that made me very successful, manager of the year multiple times, share leadership in my markets with the Coca-Cola Company, and just an opportunity to share with you some of the things you might want to consider to be able to understand the processes are so critical. Now, I can tell you this, most people are running around in their business. It's been a situation where, you lack that critical word called time to be able to implement these processes. And then do we have the accountability in the system to help people understand how important it is to hold people accountable? You know, as a manager with Coca-Cola, I'd take training every year. You know what it was a check in a box. That's why I created courses over at the Focus Life Institute under Focus Life Business, multiple courses that hold people accountable in the area of understanding the business and then how to apply those principles, those processes into the workplace. So there's greater levels of three things. One, greater levels of profitability, and you like that, right, as an owner or a person involved with business. Number two, a large increase in the area of productivity. And we see right now that people are really distracted all the times at work, and productivity is at one of the lowest areas at all times. And then finally, efficiency. How do we gain efficiencies? So there are two processes I want to share with you today. One, the first process is that key learnings. Key learnings. Write that down. Key learnings. What are key learnings? These are specific things that you glean during the course of a year that you're writing down and you're having your people document what's worked and what's not worked. And this is where we get into trouble because you know what insanity is, doing the same thing over and over, trying to get different results. But what happens is that we get stuck sometimes in a way we normally do it. Instead of maybe reaching out to our peers, reaching out to each other, having these meetings where we sit down, we're able to help understand where people are. In the Coca-Cola Company, I had a great boss, and what he would do was every month we would come in and we would have this thing called where you really have a higher advantage than somebody else. It was unfair advantage. That's what we called it. Now, what he did was he brought our peers, and said, what did you do this month that created an unfair advantage? Now, an unfair advantage is something where you might have a lower market share, but you have greater shelf space. That's the way it was in my business, okay? We were fighting our competition in the orange juice business, and guess what? We had Simply Orange Juice, we had Minute Maid brand, but we were fighting other brands that were pretty prominent brands. But when you would walk into a shelf and you'd see on the dairy section that we had more space than our competition, that was an unfair advantage. Well, how'd you do that? So one of the things you might want to consider is if you are a manager or CEO, get this information about how to help people come back with some unfair advantage and reward them for it, right? But we got to look at these key learnings. We got to say what did not work. And maybe it was the environment, maybe it was certain things that happened, but we got to be very cautious to train our people to really understand what are some creative ways to be able to understand, to get these key learnings, implement them, or even tweak them in a situation. I'll give you an example. We launched multiple products, new products with the Coca-Cola Company in my division, Minute Maid. And I tell you what, we were very successful. We launched, and I was very fortunate to launch the Simply Orange Juice brand. It became a billion-dollar brand in the 10 years that I worked for the company. I had the highest share in the country. I had the number one ad in the country that first came out with this brand. And this is very powerful to help us understand how important it is right now to understand that we've got to get people focused on what really matters. So these key learnings were very important. And so what happened was when we had the situation with these new item launches, I made sure that I would understand the key learnings going into the marketplace, what worked and what was not going to work. Now, our success rate of new items, when I worked for the Coca-Cola Company, especially in my area, my region, was about 90%. That means 10% of the brands that we launched didn't work out. Guess where our competition was? They were in the high 30s. Okay, so we really were at the chance we launched new items, we would gain that traction and would produce more profitability. And I'd be very cautious because one of the things you got to key learning is you might bring a new product into the market that substitutes something else that might be a lower seller. But if that brand does not get traction in the first 6 months, in the grocery business, they're going to toss you out in 6 months if you did not make the numbers that you felt you were going to be able to do. And so sometimes we would replace an existing item with a new item, and that new item never gained traction. So I just lost the volume I had on an existing item, and the new item never really got to it. So we can be careful how we look at these things and make sure that the brands we're bringing or the products we're bringing into a customer, that they really make sense. Now, I was dealing with a food broker at that particular time, the largest one in the United States and the world. And I tell you what, most of my key account managers at that time were stable and secure. And I teach on behavioral principles on this. I'm certified in the DISC, D-I-S-C. I've trained that for over 30 years. I trained at the Coca-Cola Company across the country, training people how to understand their customers, how to understand each other, understand more about yourself to make better quality decisions. And so what happens is that you got to understand that I was dealing with a lot of business managers that I was managing were stable, secure, and they would not bring an idea. They would say, tell me what to do, Ed. Come on. You're in the market each and every day. I'm coming into your customer maybe once a month, maybe once a quarter. I'm launching in new items. I'm helping you build those presentations. But you're with that customer, and you're managing multiple lines beside my line. But you ought to know that customer like you've never known before, so you got to capture key learnings. Many times I had to really go back to my business manager and say, stop. You got to go back to the customer and find out what's really going on here. You're telling me one thing. I don't believe that. When they always would come back to me, it was a different story. It was not about margin. It was not about giving them more money. It was just we were a more successful brand than our competition. So if you're going to run feature ads on brands, you better run them on ours because there's more profitability, more turn, and it really makes him look good because it makes his volume number the vice president we were dealing with. So that's one piece of it. Get those key learnings. Write those down. Challenge your people. Challenge your people on a monthly basis and every quarter when you're dealing with issues, or 6 months when you're having, obviously, the performance review, and talk to them about what worked and what didn't work and capture that. Make sure going into next year that you're not going to be planning the same way you did last year. See, we would plan the next year's business in about June, 6 months prior before the year started, May, June timeframe. That would give us time to present it. But there was multiple times when I had to challenge my people and say, listen, we're not doing it that way before. It didn't work. So what are we going to do? So that's the first important thing, is understanding these key learnings there. The second point I want to bring about is this formula. It's kind of a model code called OGSM. Maybe some of you have heard of it. It's objectives, goals, strategies, and measures. And we got to make sure that we get the objective right. So what I used to do was I would go to my market. I'd sit down with each key account manager, and I was managing some pretty big customers across the United States, in my territory specifically. They were ranked in some of them in the top 15. And what happens is that I would sit down with them and I'd say, okay, what is our top objective here? What is the one thing, the main objective we want? Okay, we want to sell new items that are in there. We want to get new distribution. Okay, so that's in words. What's in words? Now, what are the goals? The goals are short, basic pieces of that specifically major objective. So I want to sell 80% ACV of my product into the stores by the first 6 weeks, okay? I want to make sure I get full distribution on this line. I want to run multiple ads. I'm all in numbers. And then the S stands for strategy. Are you getting the right strategic aspect to be able to put your brands in those right places and have the right strategies so your customer is satisfied and it's a win-win where they're making money, you're making money, and this brand's starting to take off, just like Simply Orange Juice did, Gold Peak Tea that I sold, Fairlife Milk, brands that became billion-dollar brands quickly within the organization. And then finally, you have to put a measurement on that in numbers. Did you do this measurement, etc.? But I did something different. Everybody kind of knows the OGSM method. I put in the execution goal chart. And what the execution goal chart was, I would sit down with my key account managers and business managers. And I'd say, okay, here's what we need to do, guys, men and women. We need to make sure that you understand that here's the objective, here's the goals, here's the strategies and measures. And many times those came down from top down, okay, from headquarters down. But I would take it and say, we're going to execute this. See, I was known as one of the greatest practitioners and executors in the company. Many people told me that. You execute so good. You get a brand in here, you get it out quickly, you get distribution quickly. You're the first ad in the country. Everybody knows it's there. Everybody pumps it up. You just have ability to do that. That's what I'm trying to teach you that here and some things that I've done. Now, the second thing is the execution goal chart. That starts off right now with some tasks. What task are you going to be able to do? So I'm looking at my key account manager. I'm saying these are the tasks you're going to have to do in the next 6 weeks to get this product launched or whatever we're doing in the organization to make some new aspects of maybe some new processes, whatever. These are the tasks. Then I said, who are the resourceful people? Is it you doing that? Or there's somebody else in the organization who has a better ability to do these things? You want to bring them in and use those resources. Maybe it's a peer. Maybe it's a manager. Maybe it's somebody in accounting, administration, whatever it might be. And then we have to have the action plan. Okay, this is the task. Here's the resources. I'm taking a strategy. I'm breaking that strategy down into some action plan steps. And then I'm going to put a time frame on that. That means, okay, in 6 weeks, we got to have 80% of the stores with our brands. I mean, ACV is the ability to put our brands in the stores at that level. When 80% of stores having that distribution, guess what? In week number 1, week number 2, 3, 4, 5, this is what you got to be doing. You got to work with the sales team, the retail sales team. You got to make sure that brand is going out, and we got to be taking audits. We got to get out there and make sure this brand's out there, and we're able to do that through Nielsen and other opportunities to really bring forward the resources and research the results of that. So think about this. You got key learnings over here, creating that process of key learnings, and then you're taking that into the objectives, the goals, the strategies, and measures, and you're looking at also the opportunity right now to be able to look at an execution goal chart. There was a situation with the Coca-Cola company. They were downsizing people, and they called me in as we were interviewing multiple people from the water division and my division, and some people were going to lose their jobs. I walked in with my notebook that had the OGSMs and the execution goal chart, and they were blown away. They said, man, we got to incorporate this throughout the regions. And so think about this. This is an opportunity to execute the program. Have those tasks listed there. You can find all this information at focuslifeinstitute.com in the business section. I relate that in multiple courses to help you understand how to be able to gain major efficiencies, productivity, and profitability. So these are a couple aspects you might want to consider when you're looking at an opportunity to increase your business, get your team focused on what they need to do to see results. It worked for me. As I mentioned before, I was really blessed in the area I was in. I had some tough customers, okay, but I served my customers. That's why check out even the Heroes Effect. This is something I taught at the Coca-Cola Company. These are virtues you need to have in society. But check out all the information there at Focus Life Institute. I'm here as an opportunity here to help you grow your business, help you be successful, and remember this: your focus, it does determine your future.